Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
In my strange, demented way, I think we're all murderers.
That was the actor Robert Blake on a news program in 1993, talking about a topic that movie-watching Americans might have expected from him: murder. Blake was, after all, the award-winning actor known for his leading role in the 1967 true crime film In Cold Blood. That film was adapted from Truman Capote's nonfiction book about killers who murdered a family of 4. Blake was also known for his title role in the late 1970s detective show Beretta. So hearing Blake speak about murder was expected. Talking about murder was kind of Robert Blake's thing as an actor. But in 2001, murder became more than a talking point for Blake. On May 4th, 2001, when he was 67 years old, Blake took his wife, Bonny Lee Bakley, out for dinner. They went to an Italian restaurant in Studio City, California. After dinner, they walked to Blake's vehicle. He had parked on a nearby side street. When they got back to the car, Blake said he realized that he had forgotten his pistol inside the restaurant. So he went back to get it while Bonny Lee waited in the car. In the time it took Blake to walk to the restaurant and back, a tragedy occurred. Someone approached the vehicle and shot Bonny Lee to death. This was Blake speaking in a deposition about what he saw when he returned to the car.
I couldn't rouse her. First, I thought she was sleeping. I shook her. I saw the blood on her nose, and I went for help.
Detectives with the Los Angeles Police Department executed a search warrant at Blake's house in the days after the killing. They found 2 9mm handguns. They seized paperwork and phone records. Blake denied killing Bonny Lee. And police eventually determined that the pistol Blake had left in the restaurant could not have been the murder weapon. But suspicions remained high, especially within the LAPD. Blake's bodyguard, Earl Caldwell, told police that he believed Bonny Lee's shooter really meant to shoot someone else. Police dismissed that possibility. Caldwell told Fox News that he believed the LAPD intended to arrest Blake. "They're already cooking his goose," Caldwell said. And he was right. On April 18th, 2002, just shy of 1 year after Bonny Lee's death, LAPD officers arrested Blake for murder. They also arrested Earl Caldwell, charging him with conspiracy to commit murder. The arrests set off a celebrity firestorm and murder trial, not unlike the cases brought against O.J. Simpson, Lana Turner, Snoop Dogg, and New England's Patriots tight end Aaron Hernandez. In this episode, we'll dig into the details of Bonny Lee Bakley's death. Robert Blake was recently in the news again earlier this year, so I thought it would be interesting to explore the court case that threatened to put him on death row. I remember following it at the time, but I didn't remember what exactly had happened and why the conclusion of the case turned out the way it did. We went through court documents, police reports, interviews, and news articles to try and piece everything together. With the recent news, it might be safe to say the case is officially closed. This is Jillian in partnership with Law and Crime. You are listening to Court Junkie, episode 244. I recently listened to 2 really interesting podcast episodes. One featured an interview with journalist Mitchell Prothero, who talked about the cocaine crisis in Europe through the stories of cartel thugs, cops, journalists, and victims caught in the middle. The other episode was with Ryan Montgomery, a professional cybersecurity specialist who is known for exposing online predators. Sounds pretty fascinating, right? Well, then you'll want to check out the Jordan Harbinger Show, which I'm sure you court junkies will love. Jordan's show, which Apple named one of its best of 2018, is aimed at making you a better informed, more critical thinker so you can get a sense of how the world actually works and come to your own conclusions about what's happening, even inside your own brain. Each episode is a conversation with a different fascinating guest, and there's something for everyone here. In one episode, Jordan talks to a hostage negotiator from the FBI who offers techniques on how to get people to like and trust you. Another episode tells the story of a cinematographer who discovered a lost city in the jungle and made one of the most important archaeological finds of this century. I really enjoyed this show, and I think you will as well. Search for the Jordan Harbinger Show. That's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can go to jordanharbinger.com/subscribe. Robert Blake was born Michael James Gubitosi in a New Jersey suburb in 1933. His dad worked as a dye setter for a can manufacturer. His mom stayed home to raise the kids. And the Gubitosi parents pushed their kids towards acting and performing at an early age. When Blake was only a toddler, his father would take him and his two older siblings to dance for money in parks. Their father accompanied them on guitar. They were called the Three Little Hillbillies. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times, Blake would later say, "It was either doing that or stealing milk bottles off of other people's porches." The family moved to Los Angeles in 1938. The Gubitosi kids began working as movie extras. But according to Blake, there was a dark undercurrent in their lives. In interviews, Blake would describe his childhood as chaotic and unhappy, scary even. He said kids at his school bullied him, and he got into fights, which got him kicked out of school. And his home life was no better. He said his alcoholic father and mother abused him. He said his parents would lock him into a closet and force him to eat off the floor if he misbehaved. He said he ran away from home at age 14, and that his father died by suicide. Acting became a respite for him. His parents had pushed him to accept roles in bit movie parts. He eventually landed a role in MGM's Our Gang series, which would later become known as The Little Rascals. He acted in 40 of those shows by the time he was 11. It was around this time that he adopted the stage name Bobby Blake. He continued acting a lot until 1950. When he was 18, the United States Army drafted him. After an honorable discharge 3 years later, he wasn't able to find work. He fell into a depression. He became addicted to heroin and cocaine. He sold drugs. To get his life back in order, he enrolled in an acting class. By 1956, he was regularly acting again, this time going by Robert Blake. While Blake acted in hundreds of shows and films over the better part of the next 2 decades, he never quite became a star. But that changed in 1967 when he played a lead role as Perry Smith in Cold Blood. The film received 2 Oscar nominations. But Blake may best be known for his role as Tony Beretta in the popular television series Beretta. That series ran from 1975 to 1978. He played a no-nonsense plainclothes police detective. He won an Emmy for the role. Blake continued to work prolifically throughout the 1980s and 1990s. He became an A-list actor, one whose love life often made tabloid headlines. He married actress Sandra Keur in 1961. They had 2 children and divorced in 1983. He then stayed single for most of the 1980s and 1990s before meeting Bonny Lee Bakley. Bonny Lee had already been married 9 times before meeting Blake. While the two dated, she was also reportedly in a relationship with Christian Brando, the son of Marlon Brando. When Bonny Lee became pregnant, she insisted that Brando was the father. But Blake demanded that Bonny Lee take a DNA test, and when that test indicated that Blake was the father, they married. It was November 19th, 2000. Their marriage would come to an abrupt and violent end. They had been married for less than 6 months. Bonny Lee was 44 years old. It was May 4th, 2001. That night, Blake took Bonny Lee out for dinner at Vitello's in Studio City, California. You'll recall what Blake said happened next. After dinner, he realized that he forgot his gun at the restaurant. He left Bonny Lee in the car to go get the gun. When he returned to the car, he said he found Bonny Lee lifeless with a gunshot wound to her head. Then he went back to the restaurant to get help. A neighbor ended up calling 911.
Fire paramedics, operator 38, address emergency.
Okay, we need a woman was beat up at the
My
wife, get an ambulance here.
Conscious?
Is she conscious, Robert?
No.
She's not conscious.
Breathing?
Is she breathing? Yeah, they're coming. They're
I
coming.
can't tell.
Okay, he can't tell, but
Tell whether she's breathing or
whether she's breathing or not, he said you need to get somebody out here right away.
What part of her body was injured?
What's that?
What part of her body?
Her head. It's bleeding severely.
Get a clean, dry towel, hold pressure on it.
Okay.
Control the bleeding while the paramedics are out.
Okay, where are you at, Robert? Where are you at?
The car's right there.
Right behind the dumpster?
Is it in front of your house or what?
Yeah, it's right here. Yeah.
Okay, where's the people that did this?
Okay, go ahead. I'll run over there, okay?
Where's
Okay.
the people that did this?
He said he doesn't know. He just,
You just found her beat up?
yeah.
In the days and weeks after Bonny Lee's death, a lot of suspicion surrounded Blake, both in media circles and within the Los Angeles Police Department. One reason for that suspicion came from the restaurant's co-owner. In interviews, he disputed that Blake had returned to the restaurant twice, as Blake had said. Instead, he said, Blake ran in here saying something had happened. He asked for a glass of water. Then the restaurant owner said, he first said his wife had been hurt, and then he said she had fallen down. Finally, he said she had been shot. Blake asked the owner to call 911. Then he allegedly told him not to bother. 16 detectives were assigned to the case. They interviewed Blake 3 times in the days after the shooting, and there were some discrepancies in his statements to police. Detectives found a .38 caliber handgun in a dumpster not far from where Bonny Lee died. Someone had partially filed off the gun's serial numbers. Ballistics tests revealed that it was the murder weapon, not the one that Blake forgot at the restaurant. In response to all the suspicion flying around, Blake's lawyer, Harland Braun, gave a press conference. He released letters indicating that Bonny Lee ran a Lonely Hearts business in which she would offer nude photographs of herself and others for sale. Bonny Lee had enemies, Braun said. She was celebrity obsessed. And Blake carried a gun that night because Bonny Lee feared for her life. She feared the enemies she had made running her Lonely Hearts business and others. The allegations weren't enough to dissuade law enforcement from targeting Blake, however. On April 18, 2002, officers with the LAPD arrested Blake and charged him with Bonny Lee's murder. Here's from a newscast where the reporter is telling viewers what he sees as officers go in for the arrest.
Police are moving into the they have detective badges. They've closed the entire entrance, and they are all in a line, driving right up to the front of Blake's house, the entire street, and are not letting anybody else in. And it looks like Blake will be arrested. They're moving in on Blake's home as we speak.
Police also arrested Blake's longtime bodyguard, Earl Caldwell, charging him with conspiracy in connection with the murder. It had taken almost a year for police to arrest Blake, and even so, there was no physical evidence tying him to the killing. A press release from the LAPD said that detectives examined more than 900 items linked to both Blake and Bonny Lee. Those included letters, records, photographs, and other physical evidence. They also interviewed more than 150 people in 20 states around the country. But key to their investigation was a promise from Ronald Duffy Hamilton, a retired stuntman, to testify against Blake. During a drawn-out preliminary hearing in March of 2003, 3 veteran stuntmen, including Hamilton, said that Blake approached 5 people about either killing Bonny Lee or having her arrested and sent to prison. And this wasn't during a single meeting. They said that it was a consistent refrain from Blake for about a year and a half, between October 1999 and April 2001. They alleged that he floated 12 different plans to kill his wife. One of them was nearly identical to the way she died. Prosecutors charged him with 1 count of murder, but added special circumstances to the charge, which made it a capital case. He faced the death penalty. Prosecutors also charged him with 2 counts of solicitation of murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. It was a stunning turn of events for a television detective. Prosecutors decided not to pursue the death penalty against Robert Blake after all, but he was still in an avalanche of trouble. Bonny Lee's 4 children began civil proceedings against him in April 2002. That was more than a year before he was ever given the opportunity to plead not guilty in criminal court. Unlike many wealthy defendants, Blake spent a year in jail following his arrest. A judge had denied him bail. While he awaited his trial, Blake allowed Barbara Walters to interview him on 2020. His lawyer, Harland Braun, disagreed with the decision and quit rather than deal with the fallout from the interview. The interview aired on February 26, 2003.
Robert, you've been in jail now for almost a year. How are you doing?
In this place, it's real simple. It's not how you're doing.
Yeah.
You're alive or you're dead.
Blake maintained his innocence.
Robert, are you innocent?
Of course I'm innocent. Of course I'm innocent.
And he didn't hold back his opinion about the LAPD.
What if you are found guilty?
What are they going to do to me? What are they going to do to me that they haven't done already? What are they going to do to me that they haven't done already? They took away my entire past. They took away my entire future. They took away everything I saved for. They took away everything I believed in. What's left for them to take? You're going to take my testicles and make earrings out of them?
On March 14th, 2003, a judge decided that Blake would, in fact, stand trial for Bonny Lee's murder. The judge granted Blake bail. He left jail for the first time in a year. His trial began on December 20th, 2004. Prosecutors alleged that Blake attempted to hire 2 stuntmen to kill his wife. Those stuntmen were Gary McLarty and Ronald Duffy Hamilton. They both said they declined the offer. Prosecutors said that in response, Blake decided to shoot Bonny Lee himself. This is Shelley Samuels, the prosecutor, in a clip from Court TV. The judge had only allowed cameras in for opening statements, closing arguments, and the verdict.
During the presentation of the people's case, the prosecution will establish that the victim in this case was killed because the defendant wanted sole custody of their child and wanted the baby away from her mother and her mother's family. The evidence will show that the defendant thought that Bonnie's family, Rosie's other side of the family, were low-life trailer trash that all made their living working for Bonnie in her illegal schemes to scam men. The defendant thought her sister, her brother, her daughter were all convicted felons.
According to court documents, both stuntmen testified for the state. One of them, Gary McLarty, told the court that he met Robert Blake hoping that he might be a stunt double for him on Beretta. Another stuntman had contacted him and asked him if he would be interested in being a bodyguard for Blake because someone was bothering him and his wife. He said they met at a restaurant. We don't have the audio from the trial, but this is from Court TV and is from McLarty's testimony at a pre-trial hearing. He talks about how Blake asked him about another killing he had been involved in.
Where did you meet Robert Blake?
I met Robert Blake at Dupars on Ventura Boulevard. He started asking me how I came out of the problem that I had had earlier.
And what was that about?
It was over a killing that happened, was a self-defense thing.
So you killed somebody in self-defense?
Yes.
He said after about 10 minutes at the restaurant, Blake suggested they go back to his house. Again, from Court TV.
What happened next?
He said, let's go over to his house for a while. He started venting about this woman that he had met somewhere at a bar, and he'd had intercourse with her, and she was pregnant.
And did he suggest to you something that you could do or could happen to her?
Yes, that somebody at night could come in while she was sleeping and go up the stairs and pop her.
And pop her?
Yes. He talked about a price, too. He said that he wanted to pay $10,000. And I explained to him that I wouldn't do anything like this. That girl didn't do anything to me.
Did the defendant have a response to what you said?
He actually said, why, I believe. And I said, why? I said, well, just your notoriety alone would be a problem.
According to McLarty, Blake never mentioned Bonny Lee by name, but he talked about several ways to murder her. One of them was to take her to dinner at a restaurant and then leave her alone in the car afterward for a bit, letting enough time go by so someone could then come and dispose of her. Another plot included Blake and Bonny Lee going on a road trip somewhere, and Blake would stop at the side of the road to relieve himself. Then someone could run up and kill her inside the car. McLarty told the jury that he told Blake he wouldn't do it, and that's the last time he talked to him. While on cross, Blake's attorney pulled out medical records, which showed that McLarty had been heavily using drugs in the weeks prior to meeting Blake. McLarty agreed that he had a drug addiction that went back to the 1980s and a history of delusional behavior. He told the court that he had also voluntarily checked himself into a psychiatric ward in 2004 and spent 17 days there. He also admitted that he had lied under oath at a pre-trial hearing when he said he had just experimented with drugs. Under questioning from Blake's attorney, he also agreed that while the case was pending and he was under the influence of drugs, he thought the police were trying to get him and that people were tracking his movements and tunneling under his house. Blake's attorney also got him to admit that he had seen alien spaceships when he was a kid and could read people's minds. Prosecutors also called Ronald Duffy Hamilton to the stand. He said they met several times, the first being for what he thought was a meeting about a script. They then went for a drive, and Blake drove him to the very street where Bonny Lee was later killed. This is also from his testimony at the pretrial hearing.
He started in telling me somewhat of the story about problems that he was having with his wife. He almost immediately started talking about the fact that he was going to have to get rid of her.
He said Blake discussed several scenarios, including taking her to a hotel room where she could be shot there, or having Hamilton ride up on a motorcycle, and then taking care of business while Blake and Bonny Lee were camping. He testified that Blake told him that he had a friend who would already have the holes dug, and that he was nervous about the fact that Blake mentioned more than one hole. He said he too refused to do it, and after he told Blake that, Blake said, "If you're not going to do it, I sure as hell am." He said Blake told him he wanted to protect his daughter from Bonny Lee, whom he called evil, and that he didn't want his daughter growing up in the same environment Bonny Lee was in. On cross, Blake's attorney again brought up this witness's drug use. Hamilton had also initially told police that he knew nothing about the case. Frank Minucci was another main witness for the state at Blake's trial. He was an admitted former criminal, actor, and most recently, as of the timing of the trial, a preacher. He told the jury he had previously been in a motorcycle gang, and after nearly dying from an overdose and having a baby with his wife, he had decided to turn his life around. He wrote a book about his life called Brother Frank, A True Story, where he detailed his transformation. He testified that Blake had contacted him through a literary agent in 1999, and they became friends via talking on the phone multiple times a week. Minucci was an actor too, and had played the role of Tony T, a mob boss, in the movie Carlito's Way. He told the jury that Blake began talking about a woman he called a pig. The woman had told Blake that she was pregnant. According to Minucci, Blake said, "I'll kill her and I'll kill the kid." He recounted that in a phone conversation, he asked Blake what he was talking about and asked if Blake wanted him to whack somebody. He said he told Blake that he doesn't do that anymore, and that Blake then said he wants the guy from Carlito's Way, and said he would pay him good money. In 2000, he said Blake sent him $1,000 in 2 separate envelopes. He said Blake told him, "Get her to change her number. I don't care how you do it. Scare her. Whatever you want to do." Minucci testified that he tried to intimidate Bonny Lee into leaving Blake alone, but that it didn't work. He detailed how he and a friend, cockeyed Ralphie, went to a payphone and called her. He said Ralphie told her that he was going to rip her laundry off and do dirty things to her. He said, according to Ralphie, he said Bonny Lee's response was to ask when he was coming over. Minucci said he didn't believe it, so he called her too. When asked what she said to him, he said she wanted to know how big it was. There was a moment of laughter in the courtroom, according to the Los Angeles Times, when the prosecutor asked, "How big what was?" And Minucci responded, "My who's a whatsy." After that intimidation tactic didn't work, Minucci said Blake called him and told him not to call her anymore and to leave her alone. But then he asked Minucci to come out to California from where he lived in New York. Blake said he had something really heavy for him to do and offered him a blank check. Later, in another phone call, he said Blake told him that he's now got to marry the bitch. He said Blake again told him that he and his wife should come out to California and they would talk about things when he got there. He said he never went. He heard about the shooting but never called the police about what he said Blake had said to him. Instead, the police eventually came and found him and brought him to California to be interviewed. Just as Blake's previous lawyer, Harlan Braun, had warned, prosecutors also introduced into evidence Blake's interview with Barbara Walters.
You will see that the defendant hates Bonnie's family. He cannot stand them. But when he goes on TV in February 2003, he lies to Barbara Walters about it.
A portion of the Barbara Walters interview was played in court. In it, Walters asks Blake whether he had a positive relationship with Bonny Lee's family and whether he and Bonny Lee had a friendly dinner on the night of her death. Blake responded, "It was a time when her entire family was going to move to Los Angeles and everybody was going to have to get situated someplace. So there was a lot to talk about. There certainly wasn't any downside for me." Prosecutor Shelley Samuels told the jury that Blake did the Barbara Walters interview to try to convince the public that he had a fine relationship with Bonny Lee, but that it was a lie and showed consciousness of guilt. You don't go on TV to lie unless you have a reason to lie, and you don't lie unless you really did it. To prove that he lied, prosecutors played jailhouse phone calls in which Blake referred to Bonny Lee and her family as monsters. Gerald Schwartzbach had replaced Harlan Braun as Blake's attorney. Going against the warnings of Blake's previous lawyers, Schwartzbach took advantage of the Walters interview. He played a clip that had nothing to do with Bonny Lee's family, but showed Blake in a more positive light. In that clip, Blake talked about his life. At a late stage, he said, he was given the gift of a daughter to raise and nurture. "God gave me the gift of the century," he told Walters. "I always thought my life was a home run, and all of a sudden at the end of the trail, I get to put the ball out of the universe, and I'm going to complain?" Blake went on, speaking about his daughter. "It's all about Rosie," he said. "From the second I touched Rosie, it was all about her. The greatest gift in the world, and I'm going to mess it up by being selfish?" The Barbara Walters interview became a way for Blake, who didn't testify on his own behalf during trial, to testify without being cross-examined. In his opening statements, Schwartzbach told the jury that Blake would not have done anything to put his relationship with his daughter at risk, and there was little verifiable evidence to show that he had. Mr. Blake is charged with shooting his wife, he said. There's no evidence, direct or circumstantial, that he shot Mrs. Bakley. Schwartzbach went on, accusing the prosecution of relying on untrustworthy witnesses to put together a very flimsy case.
The prosecution has built its case on the facts of two men who were addicted to illegal drugs at the time they met with Mr. Blake. One addicted to cocaine, the other addicted to methamphetamine.
Blake's defense team brought a forensic scientist to the stand, who testified that Blake did not have enough gunshot residue on his body to make him the shooter. He had been swabbed about 2.5 hours after the murder, and 5 particles were found. The defense also pointed to other evidence the prosecution did not have. There were no fingerprints, no DNA evidence, and no murder weapon that could tie Blake to the crime. He also didn't have any blood on his clothing that night. As for the state's main witnesses, the defense called multiple people to the stand to testify about their drug use and lack of credibility. One witness told the jury that Hamilton was a frequent everyday methamphetamine user and was prone to paranoia. Another said he would stay up for days and would see things. In closing arguments, prosecutors contended that Blake killed Bonny Lee because she tricked him into marrying her.
Who killed Bonny Lee? Who had motive and who had opportunity? Motive. Robert Blake. He was tricked by Bonny Lee and he hated her for it. And he got taken by a small-time grifter. He was obsessed with Rosie. He didn't want Bonny Lee anywhere around Rosie. He hated Bonny Lee's family and didn't want them around Rosie. I've heard a lot of evidence about Bonnie and what she did for a living and how awful she was. And that's not what this case is about. Because all that would lead you to believe is that somehow if a person's bad enough and if they're a bad enough mother, they get to be killed and it's okay.
Blake's defense countered that the murder accusation was absolutely absurd.
We know that they convicted Mr. Blake on the night of the murder. They didn't arrest him for 11 months, but they convicted him that night. They haven't proved to you beyond a reasonable doubt he personally shot Bonny Bakley. And I would respectfully submit to you that if you do justice, you will end this nightmare for Mr. Blake, and you will give him back his life.
The jury began deliberations on March 5th, 2005. They analyzed the case behind closed doors for 9 days. Then, on March 16th, 2005, a verdict.
We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Robert Blake, not guilty of the crime of first-degree murder of Bonny Lee Bakley. We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Robert Blake, not guilty of the crime of solicitation of murder.
Not guilty. The jury also found Blake's co-defendant, Earl Caldwell, not guilty. Outside the courthouse on the day of the verdict, Blake talked to reporters. He called his defense team a small band of dedicated warriors and said they saved his life, Rosie's daddy's life, he said. He also told his audience that he was now broke. Among the people Blake thanked was Barbara Walters. Barbara Walters, God bless you, darling, he said. I would have never gotten out of the joint without you. God bless you, wherever you are. It was undoubtedly a victory for Blake, but he wasn't out of trouble yet. A criminal jury acquitted Robert Blake on multiple counts related to the murder, but he still faced a civil lawsuit filed against him by 3 of Bonny Lee's children. The lawsuit accused him of being responsible for Bonny Lee's death. It was a page out of another high-profile murder case, the acquittal and subsequent civil trial of O.J. Simpson. Blake's civil trial lacked the fireworks of his criminal trial. but all the same facts were at play. In civil court, the bar for responsibility is much lower for a plaintiff. A jury in a criminal court makes their decision based on whether prosecutors have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed a crime. In civil court, plaintiffs merely need to show that it is more than likely that the accusations are true. Among the additional testimony in Blake's civil case, the girlfriend of Blake's co-defendant, Earl Caldwell, testified that she believed Blake and Caldwell were in cahoots to kill Bonny Lee. A civil jury was convinced. On November 18, 2005, they found Blake liable for Bonny Lee's death and ordered him to pay $30 million. Recall that in that press conference with Blake after his criminal acquittal, Blake said he was broke. On February 3, 2006, he made that official. He filed for bankruptcy. Blake's attorney, Gerald Schwartzbach, appealed the court's decision. On April 26, 2008, an appeals court cut Blake's penalty to $15 million. Eric Dubin, the lawyer for Bonny Lee's children, told the Washington Post that he was not cowed by Blake's bankruptcy. "I'll take a cashier's check or cash, whatever he wants," Dubin said, hopefully not in quarters. The Washington Post said that Blake hung his head as the jury read its decision. One of Blake's attorneys presented a glass-is-half-full response to the finding. "Mr. Blake is very happy to return to a life that has none of this," he said. "A life that has no cameras, no verdicts, none of this." While Blake didn't testify at his criminal trial, he did testify during the civil trial. He told the jury that he loved Bonny Lee and denied having anything to do with her murder. He later went on CNN to be interviewed by Piers Morgan to say the same thing.
My relationship with her was not bad. I felt sorry for her sometimes because God never gave her that little piece of sunshine that he gave me. All the times I could have been dead and should have been dead and would have been dead, but God always said, "No, here's the sidewalk, little boy. Go out there and dance and they'll throw money." She wanted to be, I don't know, a movie star. She was a talented woman. She was a lot of things. And we got married. Everybody said, "Well, why did you get married?" Why not? Did you know? I had the most beautiful gift that anybody could ever have. I had a newborn child in my hand.
Did you love her, though?
No. I didn't know her well enough to know her. I love her. I love you as a human being. You're my brother in arms. We're all in this thing together, but we were not dramatically in love.
After being found liable in the civil lawsuit, Blake kept a low profile. In addition to the $15 million he owed in the civil case, he also owed $3 million in unpaid legal fees, in addition to overdue state and federal taxes. In the Piers Morgan interview on July 16, 2012, Blake took offense to questions about his involvement in Bonny Lee's death. Specifically, Piers asked him how he felt about being found not guilty, yet liable. Blake didn't take it well.
I would go out to dinner with her to kill her? What's the matter with you?
I didn't say you killed her.
You didn't say I didn't, and you said it's all very interesting. What the interesting about it? Why don't you ask me some really interesting questions?
I said that you were acquitted in the court case. But
and that I was found guilty, and I told you 6 times I was suicidal by the time we got...
Right, but Robert, that doesn't change the fact that you were found liable in the civil action. I'm curious about...
You would have found liable if you were in my state.
I'm curious...
You're curious about why I was found liable?
I'm curious about how you deal with the fact that a civil action was successfully brought against you for killing your wife.
Okay. Here's the bottom line. What you think of me, I don't give a what these people... Shut up for a minute. These people that you represent, whoever they are, the nuts that you find on the internet, I don't give a what they think.
Blake's daughter, Rosie, gave interviews to outlets such as People magazine, discussing how the trial affected her. Her half-sister adopted her after Bonny Lee's killing, and she existed outside the Hollywood spotlight for years. She reunited with Blake as a teenager. This is her speaking to Access Hollywood.
We still talk. We still see each other once in a while. We're still figuring it out. I don't know. We're still trying to figure out what I'm comfortable with, what he's comfortable with.
Robert Blake died on March 9th of this year. He died of heart disease in Los Angeles. He was 89 years old. 3 days after his death, at the 95th Academy Awards, Jimmy Kimmel made a joke that showed just how tarnished the once Emmy Award-winning actor's reputation had become. He said, "Everybody, please get out your phones. It's time to vote, even at home. If you think Robert Blake should be included in the in memoriam montage of the Academy Awards show." Then the punchline, text "Gimme a Blake" to the number on your screen or any number. Robert Blake was not mentioned during the Academy Awards. And that's all for this episode. As always, I'd love to hear what you think about this case. You can let me know by joining the conversation on Instagram at CourtJunkie, by tweeting me at CourtJunkiePod, or by emailing me at podcast@CourtJunkie.com. This episode was researched and written by Nicole Gusmerotti and Matt Stroud. If you'd like to hear these episodes without the ads, hear additional Court Junkie bonus episodes, or get access to our weekly newsletter regarding fascinating court cases, check out our Patreon options at CourtJunkie.com/support. Also, be sure to check out our sister podcast, Civil, which covers interesting civil cases and trials. You can subscribe by searching for Civil Court Junkie on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.